The campfire fluttered in the wind. I pulled my cloak up high so to protect my ears from the blistering cold. I wanted to write in my journal more, but such conditions didn't do well for ink. "Damn thing," Oxford yelled, while poking the embers with his sword. "I'm going to freeze my ass off." "Just go ahead and snuff it out," Daq said from behind us. "The prince said that we couldn't make one anyways." "Fuck off with him," Oxford yelled back, desperately trying to save the fire. "These men have killed men before. Precisely why he doesn't want us to make one." Daq stomped the fire out with the end of his enormous hammer. "No fire." I must admit, I was chilly too, and seeing him crush out the fire brought me to a deep low. I backed into my cloak further and tried to hide from the every ounce of wind. What's wrong with one small fire? Drax was an older man, but he damn sure wasn't a small one. His chest could best be described as a barrel. He never took off that golden plate armor of his, even while he slept. He looked down at me with his great bald head and square-cut beard. "You're in the Forsaken Mountains, boy." His voice always sounded like he was giving a command. "There are unnatural things here." "Like this unnatural cold," Oxford yelled while looking at the corpse of his fire. My attention had been shifted from the cold. "Unnatural? You're joking, right? I thought no fire so that the Tartars don't follow us up here." He chuckled. "That's his excuse, and it's a good one too, but no." He rested his weight on the hammer, leaned on it like it was merely a broom. "Smart men don't fight in these woods. The prince learned that lesson the hard way. He was died in a duel up here." "A duel?" I laughed. "Prince Magyar is one of the greatest duelists in the kingdom. What was he battling, a wyvern?" "Must have been a fucking ice wyvern," Oxford said while shaking beside us. "Have you heard of Titan's blood?" Drax asked, ignoring Oxford. "Titan, the war god?" "Yes. The legend says that long ago a great swordsman, a damn good swordsman, challenged him to a duel. The great Captain Black." Drax crouched down, his voice following the trend and lowering with him. "Captain Black was unlike any man. His speed was a blow and his power could cut stones." I shook my head. "He could be as fast and strong as he was. He couldn't have beaten Titan." "He didn't need to beat him, only make him bleed. They say Titan's blood is made of pure rage, and Black knew this. So as soon as Black found the god, he dived in for a wild strike and drew his blood with a perfectly placed stab. Titan, naturally, was surprised and backed away, allowing Black the moment to cover himself in the blood." "I don't understand," I said, leaning forward. "Then what?" "Well, Titan was rather amused and impressed. No man had ever even touched him at that point. So as a boon, he allowed the man to bask in his blood. He wanted him to train up and challenge him again, when he could pose an actual threat." Drax stood back up and stared into the now blizzarding wind. "So he's here, said to be fighting the children of Titan as training. Mountain beasts. That's why those things haven't been seen for hundreds of years. He's been hunting down almost all of them, living an unnaturally long life in the blood. They say Black stalks these woods in all black, like a hunched-over dog, which is how he got his name, Black Dog Black." "Prince Magyar ran into him some time ago, by mere happen chance. The story is cloudy, but they got into a scuffle and the prince almost slain. I heard that 100 men fell that day." "Alright, here's what I don't fucking get," Oxford said from under his covers. "If all that shit is true and this mysterious man stalks the woods hunting ice giants, and Prince Magyar happens to almost die when he accidentally ran into him, why the hell are we here, freezing our asses off?" "Would you have us hide from the Tartans in the farm fields and by the pretty little streams?" Drax said plainly. "Well, fun fucking fact." Oxford stood up, obviously unhappy of the snow. "I take that over—" A horn sounded in the distance. The three of us exchanged confused looks as its sound pierced the whistling wind. It was a long call and notably not one of ours. "Is that—" I paused anxiously, not wanting to say it. Drax picked up his hammer. "The Tartans have followed us. It seems the legends of the mountains weren't enough for them." Oxford still looked confused. "What a stupid fucking Just then, an arrow came blistering out of the white fog and dove straight into his chest, throwing him to the ground and causing him to sprawl out across the fresh snow, painting it with a fatal amount of red. "Dear gods!" I screamed, unable to move from the shock. Drax grabbed me by my cloak and dragged me behind a tree. "Sword up, son!" He ran to the tree beside me as more arrows flew in, hissing as they landed beside us. "Where are they?" I yelled, unsure what else I could do. "I'm going to guess and say where the arrows are coming from." "We have to go grab everyone else." "You missed the point of being a scouting troop, son." I could hear the sound of running feet in the snow. "We're supposed to find them first." He turned for the tree and planted his hammer perfectly into a soldier's chest, killing him immediately. Now our mission is to not get fucked. I followed his lead and turned. Immediately I was met by an armored man raising his sword to strike me. I yelled and raised my sword to meet his. It glanced mine and slipped down the length of it, clipping my handle and bringing my hand and blade down with. The man then punched me in the nose and sent me back into the tree I was originally hiding behind. I could see in the blizzard an entire force of men running up behind him. 20, 30, it didn't matter. I was already fighting with one. The man again raised his sword, this time coming at an angle. I brought on my own to meet it, but at the last moment he dropped it lower and dug the blade deep into my thigh. Ugh! I fell to one knee as he pulled the sword back out, splattering my blood across the snow. Just before he could drive the blade into my chest, Drax came barreling in from outside my view and crushed the man's skull with one easy swing. Through my watering eyes I could see that he was absolutely covered in blood, and as I turned my head to see where it came from, I saw at least 4 mangled bodies lying dead. "Raise, boy," he said, turning to face the approaching horde. "I don't plan on meeting death dressed like a pussy." I groaned as I used my good knee to stand, my notably clean blade in my right hand. I hobbled up next to Drax as a semicircle of men formed in front of us, obviously hesitant to the behemoth who just effortlessly killed 5 of their men. "We're going to die," I said, unable to control myself. "That's right," Drax replied. "Just make sure your body isn't pretty when you die." Off to the side I saw it, a strange, hunched-over thing watching us. I blinked and whipped off my eyes with my left hand, trying to focus amidst the blizzard and blood. In the distance, sure enough, was a man in a tattered black cloak and bright red eyes. What the fuck? 3 men jabbed out at us. I backed up and tripped over myself, tumbling back into the white powder. Drax met the first man head on and slapped away his blade with one hand, using his other to sling his hammer straight down on the man, killing him. Another man dug his sword into Drax's side and drew blood, but was slammed by his fist for doing so. The final one went for his leg and dropped the man to his knee with one slice. I quickly stood back up to help. Drax lifted his hammer and swatted away both men with one massive swipe, but was already flanked by 2 more and stabbed thrice over in the back. He arched back and yelled out. Then it happened in an instant. The 2 men behind Drax were lying dead in the snow, and in their place stood one man, the same man from before, covered in black and holding one sword as dark as the night sky. The small army in front of Drax backed up from surprise, all the while Drax himself was on all fours trying to recover. The man walked forward, sword dragging in the snow. The troops, I'm sure, were surprised at his red eyes and sudden appearance, but it didn't last long. They launched into an assault on him, 4 coming at one time. The man, it was effortless. It wasn't even a supernatural speed, it was just all perfectly done. The man stood in one place and swung his sword around his entire body, blocking this and that strike, as if he saw them coming before they were thrown. Strikes were perfectly intermixed with blocks, and they blended together with such clean nuance that it looked as if he was just making one really long and fluid motion. Then he started marching forward, still swinging around himself and blowing the dark steel with a precise fury. One swing, one kill. Nothing more and nothing less. Before my very own eyes, the 20 men had melted into the snow, covered in their own blood and dead. I felt that I had barely let out one breath by the time he arrived, and now every man was slain in a fashion that I could only call beautiful. Then he turned to us. Those red eyes, almost glowing amongst the whistling snow, his dark cloak covered in every ounce of blood except his own. He walked, slowly and dragging his sword, up to the still hunched-over Drax. I stood still behind it all, feeling like a ghost looking in from another place. The man leaned down next to Drax, who was bleeding all over the snow, and offered him his hand. Drax looked up, processing the situation with a face that I could not read, and took it. They stood up together, both covered in blood, and standing amongst a cemetery of dead, and were silent. The man in black then disappeared into the blizzard, barely even making footprints in the snow. I was petrified. That were... Drax cut me off. I know. He was holding his bleeding side with one hand, leaning on his hammer with the other. We've got to find the rest of the army to tell the prince. There is 20 Tartans, there is 2,000. That was a lancing force. Then, without missing a beat, he started hobbling off in that direction, using the hammer as a crutch, not looking to see if I was following or not. I looked down at the red snow where Drax had been hunched over, without even really thinking about, reached down to stick my finger in it. Raising the red index out of the snow, I rubbed it across my cheek, praying silently to Titan. I hobbled after the man.